The first time anyone saw the Void Serpent of Kepler 442b, 3 entire battle fleets simply vanished. Not destroyed, not defeated, vanished. The creature existed in the space between dimensions, a writhing mass of shadow and starfire that could reach across light years with a single thought. Its very presence warped reality, turning the vacuum of space into something that screamed. Ambassador Zethkri of the Galactic Council still remembered the emergency session that followed. Representatives from 1,000 worlds had gathered, their biosignatures flickering with terror as they watched the recordings. The dragon, for lack of a better term, had emerged from a tear in spacetime itself, its form defying every known law of physics. Where it passed, stars dimmed and planets cracked like eggs. The humans call it the Shadow Eater, Zethkri had announced to the assembly, his 4 eyes dilating with fear. Their scientists believe it feeds on electromagnetic energy and quantum fluctuations. In simpler terms, it devours the very fabric of space. The Galactic Council had immediately declared Kepler 442b a forbidden zone. Warning beacons were placed at safe distances, broadcasting in every known language, extreme danger. Interdimensional predator. Approach means death. For 12 standard cycles, no ship had dared venture within 100 light-years of the system. The dragon slumbered in the depths of space, occasionally stirring to consume a passing asteroid or comet. Long-range sensors detected its movements, a writhing mass the size of a small moon, covered in scales that reflected no light and breathed cosmic radiation. The creature's reputation spread throughout the galaxy like a plague. Children of a dozen species woke from nightmares about the Shadow Eater. Military academies used it as an example of when retreat was not just acceptable but mandatory. Even the war-loving Korthax, who considered death in battle the highest honor, spoke of the dragon in hushed whispers. Then, the humans arrived. Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Endeavour received the distress call while patrolling the Outer Rim territories. The message was garbled, barely coherent through the static, but the coordinates were clear: Kepler 442b. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Rodriguez, had gone pale when he traced the signal. "Captain," he said, his voice barely steady, "that's coming from the Forbidden Zone. The Shadow Eater's territory." Chen studied the star charts, her jaw set with determination. The human colony ship Herald of Hope had been missing for 3 weeks. If there were survivors sending that signal, she couldn't abandon them, not even to the most feared predator in known space. "Set course for Kepler 442b, she ordered, ignoring the shocked gasps from her bridge crew. "Maximum warp." Captain, her first officer, Commander Park, stepped forward. "The Council's restrictions, the Council can court-martial me later," Chen interrupted. "Right now, there are human lives at stake." The Endeavour dropped out of warp at the edge of the system, its shields raised to maximum power. The crew held their breath as sensors swept the area, searching for any sign of the dragon. What they found instead made them question their sanity. On the surface of Kepler 442b's third moon, life support readings indicated a small human settlement. Impossible, the moon was supposed to be barren, a lifeless rock caught in the dragon's gravitational field. Yet there it was, clear as starlight on their screens. "Captain," the science officer called out, her voice filled with disbelief, "I'm reading multiple human life signs. Including children." Chen felt her blood run cold. Children in the Shadow Eater's domain was a nightmare beyond imagining. "Prepare an emergency evacuation team. Full environmental suits, quantum shields, everything we've got." The shuttle bay doors opened to reveal the most advanced rescue equipment the human fleet possessed. Quantum displacement shields that could theoretically protect against interdimensional attacks. Plasma weapons designed to cut through any known material. Emergency medical pods capable of sustaining life in a vacuum. As the rescue shuttle descended toward the moon's surface, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying into the mouth of death itself. The readings showed the dragon was still in the system, its massive form drifting between the 4th and 5th planets like a living nightmare. Yet somehow, impossibly, the settlement below showed no signs of distress. The shuttle touched down on a landing pad that shouldn't have existed, constructed from materials that didn't appear in any database. As the rescue team stepped out, they found themselves in a small but thriving community. Prefabricated buildings hummed with power, gardens grew under protective domes, and the sound of laughter, human laughter, drifted through the artificial atmosphere. A man in his 50s approached them, his clothes simple but clean, his face tanned by the light of an artificial sun. "You must be from the Endeavour," he said with a smile that seemed impossible given their location. "We've been expecting you." "Sir, I'm Lieutenant Commander Hayes," the rescue team leader stepped forward. "We received your distress call. We're here to evacuate you immediately." "The Shadow Eater, oh, Midnight," the man chuckled. "Don't worry about him. He's been very well behaved lately. My daughter has quite the way with animals." Hayes felt reality shift around him. "Your daughter?" Before the man could answer, a small figure came running around the corner of a nearby building. A girl, no more than 8 years old, with pigtails bouncing and a bright yellow dress that seemed to glow against the alien landscape. She stopped when she saw the rescue team, her eyes wide with excitement. "Daddy, Daddy! Are these the visitors you said were coming?" she asked, bouncing on her toes. "Are they here to meet Midnight too?" The rescue team exchanged glances of pure terror. This child, this innocent human child, was living in the Shadow Eater's territory as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. In the distance, they could see the dragon's massive form outlined against the stars, and it almost seemed to be moving closer to the settlement. "Sweetheart," her father said gently, "these are rescue workers. They've come to help us." The little girl tilted her head, confused. "Help us with what? We don't need help. Midnight takes care of everything bad that comes near our home." Hayes felt his quantum shield generator hum to life automatically, responding to some threat his conscious mind hadn't even registered yet. In the depths of space above them, something vast and ancient was stirring, and it was focused entirely on their location. The Shadow Eater descended through the atmosphere like a living storm cloud, its form shifting between dimensions as it moved. What the rescue team saw defied every understanding of physics they possessed. The creature existed in multiple states simultaneously, sometimes appearing as writhing tentacles of pure darkness, other times as a serpentine body covered in scales that reflected distant galaxies. Lieutenant Commander Hayes activated his emergency beacon, ready to signal for immediate evacuation, when something unprecedented happened. The little girl in the yellow dress clapped her hands together and laughed with pure delight. "Midnight's coming to say hello," she exclaimed, running toward an open area near the settlement. Her father watched with calm amusement, as if witnessing the approach of the galaxy's most feared predator was no more unusual than watching a pet dog fetch a ball. The dragon's landing shook the entire moon. Its massive form settled onto the surface with surprising gentleness, creating only minor tremors instead of the catastrophic quakes the rescue team expected. Up close, the creature was even more terrifying than the recordings suggested. Its head alone was the size of a starship, covered in scales that seemed to absorb light itself. Multiple eyes, each one larger than a human, gazed down at the settlement with intelligence that felt ancient beyond measure. The rescue team's equipment went haywire. Quantum shields flickered and sparked, their energy readings spiking into dangerous territory. Plasma weapons automatically powered down, their targeting systems unable to lock onto something that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Even their communications equipment struggled to function in the dragon's presence, static filling every channel. "Fall back!" Hayes shouted, raising his weapon despite knowing it would be useless. "Prepare for emergency extraction." But the little girl paid no attention to their panic. She ran directly toward the Shadow Eater, her small feet pattering across the rocky ground with the fearless enthusiasm of childhood. The rescue team watched in horror as she approached the creature that could have swallowed their entire shuttle without effort. "Emma, no!" Hayes started forward, but her father's firm hand caught his shoulder. "Watch," the man said quietly. "Really watch." The dragon lowered its massive head toward the approaching child, and, for a moment that stretched like eternity, predator and innocent stared at each other. The creature's eyes, each one a swirling galaxy of darkness and distant starlight, focused on the tiny human with an intensity that should have reduced her to atoms. Then, Emma smiled. It was a simple expression, the kind of pure joy that only children possessed. She reached up with her small hand and gently touched the tip of the dragon's snout, which was easily 20 times larger than her entire body. The scales beneath her fingers shimmered, and, for just a moment, they reflected something other than darkness. They showed the warm light of Earth's sun. "Hello, Midnight," she said in a voice that carried clearly through the artificial atmosphere. "Did you have a good nap? I missed you." The Shadow Eater made a sound that the rescue team's translators couldn't process. It was too deep, too complex, operating on frequencies that existed between dimensions. But, somehow, impossibly, it sounded like a purr. The dragon's massive head nuzzled against the little girl with the delicacy of a butterfly landing on a flower. Emma giggled and wrapped her arms around what she could reach of its snout, hugging it as if it were nothing more than an oversized pet. The creature's eyes closed, and, for the first time in recorded galactic history, the Shadow Eater looked peaceful. Impossible, Hayes whispered, his weapon forgotten in his hands. This is impossible. Emma's father, who had introduced himself as Dr. Marcus Webb, stepped up beside the stunned rescue team. Emma has a gift, he said simply. Animals have always been drawn to her, but we never expected anything like this. Animals? Hayes stared at the cosmic horror that was now gently nuzzling his daughter like an affectionate cat. That thing has destroyed entire battle fleets. Only when they threatened something he was protecting, Webb replied. Midnight doesn't attack without cause. He's been our guardian since the day we crashed here. The story came out in pieces as they watched the impossible scene unfold. The Herald of Hope had suffered a catastrophic engine failure while passing through the system. Dr. Webb, a xenobiologist, had been traveling with his daughter to establish a research station on the outer rim. When their ship crashed on the moon, they had expected to die within hours. Instead, they had awakened to find the Shadow Eater watching over them. At first, I thought we were hallucinating from oxygen deprivation, Webb explained. But Emma walked right up to him and started talking. Just like that, as if he were a lost puppy. The next thing I knew, he was using his abilities to stabilize our life support, create a breathable atmosphere, even help us construct proper shelter. Hayes watched as Emma produced a small ball from her pocket and tossed it gently toward the dragon. The creature's massive head followed the ball's arc and, with careful precision, caught it in his mouth before returning it to the giggling child. The sight of the galaxy's most feared predator playing fetch was almost too surreal to process. The distress signal, Hayes managed to say. You called for rescue. Webb nodded. Not for us. Emma's been asking to see other humans, other children. She misses having friends her own age. I thought it was time to let the galaxy know that humans and dragons can coexist. As if responding to his words, the Shadow Eater turned one of his massive eyes toward the rescue team. The intelligence there was overwhelming, ancient, alien, but unmistakably aware. Hayes felt as if he was being evaluated by a force of nature, judged by standards beyond human comprehension. Then, Emma looked up at the dragon and whispered something too quiet for the rescue team to hear. The Shadow Eater's response was a gentle rumble that seemed to come from the very bones of the moon itself. The little girl nodded seriously and walked over to the terrified rescuers. Midnight wants to know if you're here to hurt us, she said with the matter-of-fact tone children used for the most extraordinary statements. I told him you're good people, but he's been hurt by visitors before. Bad people who wanted to capture him and do mean things. Hayes slowly lowered his weapon, understanding flooding through him. The missing battle fleets, he said. They weren't exploring. They were hunting. Webb's expression darkened. Military forces from 3 different civilizations. They came with weapons designed to pierce dimensional barriers, nets that could trap interdimensional beings. Midnight defended himself the only way he knew how. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. The Shadow Eater wasn't a mindless predator, he was a refugee, hiding in the depths of space from those who would exploit his power. The lost fleets hadn't been victims of random violence, they had been aggressors who met their match in a creature protecting his territory and, now, his adopted human family. Emma skipped back to her draconic friend and placed her hand against his snout again. They're okay, Midnight. They're here to help, just like you help us. The dragon's eyes fixed on Hayes with an intensity that made him feel transparent. Then, slowly, the massive head dipped in what could only be described as a nod of acknowledgement. The message was clear, these humans were under his protection now, and any threat to them would be met with the full fury of an interdimensional predator. Hayes realized that this rescue mission had just become something far more significant than saving a crashed ship's survivors. They were witnessing the birth of an alliance that would reshape everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans and the creatures that dwelt in the dark spaces between stars. News of the rescue mission traveled through the galaxy faster than light itself. Within days, every major news network was broadcasting the impossible footage captured by the Endeavor's crew. The images were beyond belief, a human child playing with the Shadow Eater, the most feared creature in known space rolling onto its side so she could scratch behind what might charitably be called ears, the dragon carefully adjusting the settlement's solar collectors with tentacles of living darkness. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session that lasted for 3 straight rotations. Representatives arrived from every corner of civilized space, their faces masks of confusion and terror. The footage played on endless loops while xenobiologists, military strategists, and philosophers struggled to process what they were seeing. "This changes everything," declared Prime Counselor Vexhai, her crystalline features reflecting the light from a dozen different star systems. "If humans can communicate with interdimensional predators, what does this mean for galactic security?" Ambassador Zethkri found himself in the uncomfortable position of defending a species he barely understood. "The humans call it animal empathy," he explained to the assembly. "Their biological data suggests certain individuals possess an enhanced ability to communicate with non-sentient species. What we're witnessing may be an extreme manifestation of this trait." "Non-sentient," scoffed General Krex of the Korthax Empire, his battle scars glowing with indignation. "That creature destroyed our finest dreadnoughts with strategic precision. It exhibits intelligence far beyond most species in this chamber." The debate raged for hours while, light years away, Emma Webb was teaching the Shadow Eater how to play hide-and-seek. The dragon had discovered that by partially phasing into other dimensions, he could make himself translucent enough for the game to be challenging without being impossible. Emma's delighted laughter echoed across the moon's surface as she searched for a creature the size of a building that was trying very hard to hide behind a rock formation 1/10 his size. Dr. Webb watched his daughter play while simultaneously monitoring the flood of communications reaching their settlement. Ships from dozens of different species were requesting permission to observe the phenomenon firsthand. Scientists, diplomats, and curiosity seekers all wanted to witness the impossible friendship that was reshaping galactic politics. "What do you think, Midnight?" Emma asked during one of their games. She had developed the habit of including the dragon in important decisions, much to her father's amazement. "Should we let them visit? Daddy says they want to learn about us." The Shadow Eater's massive head tilted in consideration. When he spoke, the sound resonated through multiple dimensions simultaneously, requiring Emma to translate for her father and the lingering rescue team. "He says many of them are afraid," she reported. "Some want to hurt him again, but most are just curious. He thinks maybe it's time to stop hiding." Hayes, who had remained on the moon to coordinate with the incoming vessels, felt his understanding of the universe shift once again. The dragon wasn't just intelligent, he was capable of reading intentions across vast distances, analyzing the motivations of beings he had never met. The implications were staggering. The first diplomatic vessel to receive landing permission came from the Ethereal Collective, a species known for their peaceful nature and scientific curiosity. Their ship descended with excessive caution, every sensor array trained on the Shadow Eater as he lounged in the settlement's central courtyard like a cosmic cat in a patch of sunlight. Ambassador Liathana emerged from the vessel with trembling limbs, her luminescent skin pulsing with barely controlled fear. She had volunteered for this mission because her people's survival might depend on understanding the relationship between humans and interdimensional predators. If humans could command such creatures, the balance of galactic power would shift dramatically. Emma bounded up to greet the new visitor with typical childhood enthusiasm. "Hello. Are you here to meet Midnight? He's really nice once you get to know him. He helped Daddy fix our water recycler yesterday, and he knows the best places to find pretty rocks." The ambassador stared at the child in wonder. According to the briefing files, the small human had achieved something that every military force in the galaxy considered impossible: taming an interdimensional apex predator. Yet she spoke about it as casually as feeding a pet. Yes, young one," Liathana managed. "I am here to learn about your friend." Emma clapped her hands together. "Oh, you'll love him. Midnight, come meet our new friend." The Shadow Eater raised his massive head from where he had been resting, and Ambassador Liathana felt her world shift. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run, to activate her emergency beacon, to do anything except stand in the presence of a creature that could unmake reality itself. But Emma's small hand slipped into hers, warm and trusting. "It's okay," the little girl said softly. "He can feel that you're scared, but he knows you don't want to hurt anyone. That's all he really cares about." Slowly, carefully, the dragon approached. Each step sent tremors through the ground, but his movements were deliberate and controlled. When he lowered his head to Emma's level, the ambassador could see her own reflection in his galaxy-deep eyes. "Midnight says your people are very far from home," Emma translated after a moment of silent communication. "He says you're worried about your children, and that makes you good people in his book." Liathana's bioluminescence flickered with shock. Her species' homeworld was indeed facing environmental challenges that threatened their offspring. The information wasn't classified, but it certainly wasn't common knowledge among other species. How could this creature possibly know? He can feel things across space, Emma explained, noticing the ambassador's confusion. Daddy says it's because he exists in lots of places at once. He feels happy things and sad things happening everywhere, but he's too big to help most of the time. That's why he likes our games, they're just the right size for him. Over the following days, more ships arrived. Each delegation received the same gentle treatment. Emma would greet them with enthusiasm, the Shadow Eater would assess their intentions with interdimensional perception, and, gradually, the visitors would realize they were not in the presence of a monster but a guardian. The turning point came when the Korthax battlecruiser Razorblade requested landing clearance. General Krex himself descended to the surface, his massive form bristling with ceremonial weapons and bio-enhanced armor. He had come seeking either revenge for his destroyed fleets or a weapon that could ensure Korthax dominance in future conflicts. Emma took one look at the warrior's aggressive posture and shook her head sadly. Midnight says you've hurt a lot of people, she told him with the blunt honesty of childhood. He says you're not bad inside, but you make bad choices because you're afraid. General Krex's forearms flexed with indignation. I fear nothing, small human. Then, why do you carry so many weapons? Emma asked innocently. Midnight doesn't need weapons because he's not afraid of anything. But, you have lots and lots of them. The question hit the warrior like a physical blow. He stared at the child, then, at the massive dragon watching him with ancient patience. In the Shadow Eater's multidimensional gaze, Krex saw himself reflected back, not the mighty general he pretended to be, but a frightened being trying to control an uncontrollable universe through force. What I fear, he said slowly, is helplessness. The inability to protect my people. Emma nodded seriously. Midnight understands. He used to be afraid too, before he found us. But, protection isn't about being the scariest thing around. It's about caring for someone smaller than you. As if to demonstrate, the Shadow Eater gently extended one finger-sized tentacle toward the child. Emma wrapped her tiny arms around it in a hug, and, for just a moment, the cosmic horror looked like nothing more than a friend receiving affection from someone who trusted him completely. General Krex watched this exchange and felt something fundamental shift in his understanding of power. Perhaps strength wasn't about inspiring fear, perhaps it was about inspiring the kind of trust he saw in that little girl's eyes. The moment that would forever change galactic civilization happened on a Tuesday, according to Earth Standard Time. Emma had been showing a delegation of crystalline mathematicians how Midnight could manipulate spacetime to create beautiful geometric patterns in the air when her father received an urgent message from the Galactic Council. Dr. Webb's face went pale as he read the transmission. Emma, he called softly, I need you and Midnight to come here, please. The little girl skipped over with her interdimensional friend following behind, his massive form somehow managing to move quietly despite shaking the ground with each step. The visiting mathematicians watched in fascination as the Shadow Eater's tentacles wove complex equations into visible light, creating mathematical proofs that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. What's wrong, Daddy? Emma asked, noticing her father's worried expression. Webb knelt down to his daughter's level, his hands shaking slightly as he held the datapad. There's a situation in the Andromeda system. A species called the Devourers, they're attacking planets, consuming everything in their path. The Galactic Council says they're unlike anything they've ever seen before. The Shadow Eater's eyes fixed on the datapad, and his massive form stiffened with what could only be described as recognition. A sound escaped from him that made every piece of technology in the settlement briefly malfunction, a roar of anger and ancient pain that transcended dimensions. Midnight knows them, Emma said quietly, her small hand reaching up to touch her friend's scales. They hurt his family, didn't they? The dragon's head lowered until he was looking directly into Emma's eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of cosmic grief, and Emma's translation came in halting whispers. He says they came from the dark between galaxies. They destroyed his home, ate his star, killed everyone he loved. He ran here to hide, but they found him again. The crystalline delegation exchanged rapid mathematical communications, their geometric bodies flickering with calculations. Their leader, a being called Prime Equation, approached carefully. Child, Prime Equation's voice harmonized like crystal bells, our long-range sensors confirm massive objects entering our galaxy. They consume stellar energy and convert matter into fuel for their journey. Billions will die if they are not stopped. Emma looked up at Midnight, then back at her father. The council wants us to help, doesn't it? Webb nodded grimly. They're requesting that Midnight join the combined fleet response. But, Emma, these devourers sound incredibly dangerous. I won't ask you or Midnight to. We have to go, Emma interrupted, her 8-year-old voice carrying surprising determination. Midnight can't let them hurt more people like they hurt his family. And, I can't let Midnight go alone. The dragon's massive head nuzzled against the little girl with infinite gentleness. The sound he made was softer this time, filled with both love and fear for his small human friend. Emma hugged his snout and whispered something only he could hear. Within hours, the settlement had become a staging area for the largest military force in galactic history. Ships from every major civilization arrived carrying representatives, weapons, and desperate hope. The combined fleet numbered in the thousands, yet every captain knew they were facing an enemy that had consumed entire sectors in other galaxies. Admiral Torres of the human fleet took personal command of the operation, her flagship docking with the settlement to coordinate with their secret weapon. When she met Emma for the first time, she felt a profound mixture of awe and protective instinct. Miss Webb, the Admiral said formally, kneeling to the child's eye level, I want you to know that every human in the fleet considers it an honor to fight alongside you and your friend. Emma smiled shyly. Midnight says thank you. He also says to tell your ships not to get too close when the fighting starts. He doesn't want to accidentally hurt the good guys. The journey to intercept the Devourers took 3 days at maximum warp. Emma spent the time in the Endeavor's observation deck, teaching Midnight human games while the combined fleet spread out around them in protective formation. The sight of the Shadow Eater playing with a small child while surrounded by humanity's most advanced warships became an image that would inspire songs and stories for generations. When they reached the outer edge of the Helix Nebula, long-range sensors finally detected their enemy. The Devourers were beyond anything in the galactic databases, massive biomechanical constructs that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, their bodies combining organic tissue with technology that operated on principles beyond current understanding. They moved through space like cosmic locusts, stripping entire star systems of matter and energy. Weapons analysis complete, reported the fleet's science officer. These things have consumed the energy of at least 40 stars. Their defensive capabilities are. Admiral, nothing in our arsenal can penetrate their outer shells. Admiral Torres studied the tactical displays with growing despair. The enemy force numbered in the dozens, each one capable of destroying a planet with ease. Even with the combined might of every galactic civilization, they were vastly outgunned. Then, Emma's voice came over the communications system, calm and clear despite the cosmic horror bearing down on them. Midnight says he recognizes their leader, she announced. The really big one in the middle, that's the one that destroyed his home. He says it's time to finish what they started. Through the observation deck's windows, they watched the Shadow Eater begin to change. His form expanded, stretching across dimensions as he revealed his true size. What they had seen on the moon was apparently just a tiny fraction of his actual being. In the vacuum of space, he unfolded into something that dwarfed even the largest Devourer ships. All fleet units, maintain distance, Admiral Torres ordered, her voice steady despite the awe that filled her. Our job is to protect the civilians. This is Midnight's fight. Emma pressed her small hand against the observation window as her friend transformed into something that existed across multiple realities simultaneously. Don't worry, she said softly. He's not angry anymore. He's protecting us now, just like he protected Daddy and me. The first Devourer to notice the Shadow Eater's approach launched what appeared to be a planet-killing weapon, a beam of concentrated dark energy that had previously annihilated entire solar systems. The beam struck Midnight directly and, simply, disappeared, absorbed into his interdimensional form without any apparent effect. The Shadow Eater's response was swift and final. Tentacles of pure spacetime reached across impossible distances, wrapping around the attacker with the precision of a surgeon and the force of a collapsing star. The Devourer, a creature that had survived the death of galaxies, was simply unmade, its matter scattered across dimensions until nothing remained but empty space. The battle that followed lasted only minutes, but it was witnessed by sensors across 3 sectors. The Shadow Eater moved through the Devourer fleet like a force of nature, his form shifting between realities as he engaged enemies that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each movement was calculated, precise, and devastating. These were the beings that had destroyed his people, and his response was both terrible and beautiful to behold. When the largest devourer, their apparent leader, finally fell, its death cry echoed across subspace frequencies that made every sensor in the fleet temporarily malfunction. The remaining attackers, deprived of their command structure, scattered into the dark between galaxies, their coordinated assault broken. Emma watched her friend slowly return to his smaller form, exhausted but victorious. "He says he's tired now," she translated as the Shadow Eater settled back into his usual size. "But he's happy that no more people will get hurt by the bad ones." The combined fleet erupted in celebration as the threat that had terrorized 3 sectors was finally eliminated. But, in the observation deck of the Endeavour, a little girl simply hugged her interdimensional friend and told him he was brave. Admiral Torres found herself crying as she watched the scene. Humanity had always been known for their ability to befriend the strangest creatures, but this was beyond anything in their history. A human child had helped heal the wounded heart of a cosmic force, and, in doing so, had saved billions of lives across the galaxy. 6 months after the Devourer War, as historians were already calling it, the galaxy had settled into a new reality. The Kepler 442b settlement had grown into a thriving research station where scientists from dozens of worlds studied the unprecedented relationship between humans and interdimensional beings. Emma Webb, now 9 years old, had become the most famous human child in galactic history. She didn't particularly care about her fame. What mattered to Emma was that Midnight was happy, and happiness for a cosmic being, it turned out, came in surprising forms. "Midnight has been teaching the other dragons," Emma explained to a gathering of xenobiologists, her matter-of-fact tone making the impossible sound mundane. "There are 3 more in this sector who are hiding like he was. They're all friends now." Dr. Sarah Chen, who had been promoted to head the new interdimensional research division, nearly choked on her coffee. "Other dragons? Emma, you never mentioned other dragons." Emma shrugged with the casual indifference of childhood. "You never asked." "Midnight says they're smaller than him, but they're really old too. One of them makes the prettiest music when she moves through space." "Want to hear?" Before anyone could object, Emma walked outside to where the Shadow Eater was resting in the settlement's expanded courtyard. The research station now covered several square kilometers, with buildings designed to accommodate visitors from across the galaxy. At its center, Midnight lounged like a cosmic cat, occasionally shifting through dimensions to avoid accidentally damaging the smaller structures around him. "Can Luna come visit today?" Emma asked her friend. "The scientists want to meet her." The dragon's response was a gentle rumble that seemed to come from the space between stars. Within minutes, reality shimmered above the settlement, and another massive form began to materialize. Where Midnight was scales and shadow, this new dragon was crystalline light that sang as it moved. Her presence turned the artificial atmosphere into something that sparkled with impossible colors. Dr. Chen watched through the observation dome as Emma greeted the second interdimensional being with the same casual affection she showed Midnight. "They're forming a social group," she whispered to her assistant. "These cosmic forces they're becoming a family." The implications were staggering. Each dragon possessed power that could reshape reality itself, yet they deferred to the emotional needs of a human child who saw them not as weapons or tools, but as friends who needed companionship after cosmic trauma. Ambassador Liathana, now the official liaison between the Galactic Council.